The rising cost of living is one of the biggest issues facing our Colorado right now. As part of our commitment to help you navigate changes happening in our state, we're taking a close look at two approaches to something you may be dealing with right now.
So what happens if you can't pay your rent? What happens when the neighborhood you've lived in for years gets a makeover and you get priced out? Well, eviction courts across the state are just overwhelmed right now. People fighting to stay in their homes, pushing up against the high rents and wages that just can't keep up.
And in Denver alone, thousands are facing evictions. Take a look at this map. According to the Colorado Center on Law and Policy, the #1 neighborhood with most evictions right now is Hamden. They're at I-25.
And again, this is just Denver County. Experts say there is a statewide eviction crisis going on. Denver 7 Sally Mamdu joins us at 5. And Sally, let's start with the burden the state courts are under because of all this.
Shannon, the problem is so big that it's being called a crisis, and it's going to take state lawmakers to invest in more meaningful resources in order to be able to address this big issue.
Had a baby.
7 years ago, Paul Vigil could easily afford a house for his family. But that was 7 years ago.
I couldn't even afford a house if I tried. Even if I got another job, I still don't think I can afford a house.
Now he's working 12 hours a day trying to make enough for rent.
It's hard paying almost $2 grand a month plus.
Being constantly strapped for cash has taken him to eviction court twice.
Any given month, if you're late, you're paying $2,300, $2,400 to stay.
Luckily for him, he was able to work things out with his landlord. But former assistant property manager Josie Smith, who used to help manage the property where Paul lives, says he isn't the only one behind on payments.
Like 30 to 40% of their occupants are on delinquency. If they're not headed to eviction, they have very high outstanding balances.
Here's an overview of what the Colorado Center on Law and Policy is calling an eviction crisis. Right now, 27% of all civil cases filed in Colorado last year were eviction cases, which is more than a quarter of all the county court civil cases. Last year in Denver County alone, there were more than 8,000 eviction cases, and on a statewide basis, there were around 45,000, with Arapahoe seeing the highest number of eviction cases inching closer to 10,000.
Traditionally, Colorado has been a very friendly state towards landlords.
Jack Reagan-Bogan with Colorado Center on Law and Policy that advocates for more tenant rights says roughly 90% of landlords are represented by legal counsel and less than 1% of tenants have the assistance of an attorney. Oftentimes, that means tenants are pressured into signing consent agreements that eventually displaces them. And with more than 50% of Coloradans renting, court dockets are quickly filling up with evictions.
We really need our policymakers to begin investing meaningful resources to address this issue.
There has been some strides, like the recent eviction defense pilot program launched by the city, offering tenants a few lawyers to represent them. But Reagan-Bogan says that's not enough to deal with the issue. More tenant rights bills need to be passed. For now, Paul is hoping his rent that he's barely making doesn't change anytime soon.
Just too many people here, man. You can't go anywhere.
And just to give you a quick perspective on how there's a lack of tenant rights bills in Colorado, well, there's a bill that just passed that will now require landlords to actually provide payment receipts to tenants. That will be going into effect this August. We are live in Denver. Sally Mamdu, Denver 7.
It's a lot of pressure on people. Thank you, Sally.